Dear God, prepare me for the coming week. Take away my worries and my regrets. Recharge my soul and renew my hope. Please go before me. Clear the way and protect me. Bring the right people into my life and move the wrong people out of the way. Guide me with your love and give me your joy. In Jesus' name, amen. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington. I am the host, the creator and the founder of the Toy Talks podcast and platform, where we guide, advise, teach, share and come together in a safe space and share our knowledge and experiences about how to navigate the world of work and be successful in doing so, and in turn highlighting the path of our success. And that's what we do here. I share the blueprint, I share what my success looks like and what success means to me, the highs and the lows of my journey in my career, working predominantly in my white dominated spaces, and also how my experience of working as a black woman and the nuances and experiences that I've had, I bring here to the podcast. And I also have masterclasses on the toytalks.com website, which I think accompany the podcast, but more so gives you the practical skills you need for certain things like interviewing, how to create your CV, how to present your CV, redundancy, how to deal with that, the things that you should be aware of, what the current legislation is, and etc, etc, etc. Listen, first of all, skirt, Happy New Year, because this podcast episode will be out in the new year. I'm pre-recorded, and those of you who are new to the Toy Talks podcast, I had my first child at 38 years old in May 2023. I'm a new mum. How long can I say I'm a new mum for, by the way? Just want to know. Anyway, I'm a new mum. So where I was posting podcast episodes weekly, I went to bi-weekly before I was pregnant, which was great for me because it meant also that I have a bit more time to prep, less pressure on me. But now that I also am a mum, I am pre-recording a lot more. And if something happens in life, society, whatever, and I feel like an episode needs to be recorded, I do so. But in order for me to put out great episodes and be able to communicate with you all through the podcast, I think pre-recording is working for me. So by the time you listen to this, it will be the new year. So happy new year, happy 2024. I like even numbers, by the way. I'm a Libra and I like balance. So yeah, and you know, I think 2024 needs to be the year that you want to make it. These New Year's resolutions are full of shit. I've told you all before. I do not believe in New Year's resolutions. They don't make any sense, because come March, you're doing a new resolution for the resolution, you know. So that's kind of where I'm at with stuff like that. And I have an episode called Vision Boards and Manifestations, and I think that's an episode people need to be listening to yearly, because I also teach how to create a vision board, how to manifest, how to be intentional about the things that you intend to make manifest for yourself. I believe you are the architect of your career, but also that the mind is very powerful, and we need to hold ourselves accountable through the year of things that we want to achieve. So that to me is why a vision board is really important. I have certain cards on my vision board. So for example, work, life, motherhood now, and things like that. And all the things underneath those headings that I wish to achieve within a 12-month period. I need to put the heater on, because clearly we're in Antarctica. Give me 1 minute. I'm back. By the time you listen to this episode, I would have already started work again. And to be honest, like, I feel like I need to do this episode because I couldn't find the information. And one thing I always say, and you guys know about me, those of you who've been riding, know that I'm a sharer of information, because I believe knowledge is power. I know the value of knowledge, and I understand how if you disseminate knowledge and educate yourselves, you give yourself access to knowledge that you wouldn't have ordinarily known, because no one's actually teaching us. I feel like maternity is, you know, I've got the masterclass and I share so much on there, and a lot of things I learned. I actually recorded the maternity masterclass when I was on the early stages of my maternity, and I do it from the perspective of if you're a perm employee, but also if you're a freelance contractor. Like, I give the two perspectives of what to do, how to do it, certain things that you should prep. Somebody made the suggestion about, you know, going back, like what that should look like, maybe like a checklist. So I'm going to put something together and upload it onto the masterclass. So those of you who've already purchased the masterclass, I'll kind of announce when I've updated some things, and you should be able to go on there and just ordinary, because you'll have a dashboard obviously with all your masterclasses, so you'll be able to go on the maternity masterclass and see some of the updates that I've included, and I'm going to do that across the board of my masterclasses. So I'm going back to work, and my daughter, so basically by the time I go back, my daughter will be 7 months old. Just 7 months, as in, like, that I go back on what, the 6th, so she's 7 months on the 3rd, so like 3 days after she's 7 months. And, you know, the plan was that I'd go back to work end of January. That was always the plan. And just an opportunity came up from a contract perspective. It's an amazing contract, working on a really big project, and I had my interview, and for the first time in several years, it was just I just felt my spirit felt at peace at that interview. I can't even explain it to you. Now, if you were to speak to anyone around me, they'll tell you when it comes to interviews, like, I know my stuff, okay? And also, if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to put out a masterclass about interviews, and it is rich. There's stuff I want to add on there as well. I definitely will provide some updates, but the blueprint of interviews are there. I get 95% of roles, 95%, and I've said this before, and it's a figure that I'm actually quite proud of, because I've really mastered interviewing, but more so I've made interviews mutual, so that I'm able to really ask myself, do I see myself working here? I think, especially as a contractor, I think, you know, you're not wedded to anything or anyone, but at the same time, you want to feel like, you know, you're not going into, you know, a really difficult environment more than what you can handle. Bearing in mind, I've just had a child, and I need peace, I need balance, and I'm a Libran as well, so that's what I'm always pursuing. But I had the interview. It was that three people panel, and 2 men and a woman, and they were just normal. Like, when I say normal, like, no ag is what I'm trying to say. So I feel like some interviews are just intense. You know, I had, the funny thing is, right, over the last 2.5 weeks, I've had quite a few interviews, and I was offered every single role. There was one role where I told the recruiter I don't want that role, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. So when I applied for the role, because the thing is, if you want to go back to work in January, the best time to apply for a role for a January start would be October, and that's whether you're a contractor or if you're a perm, because there are seasons for things. If you imagine, just look at it in practical terms, December's a really quiet month. So the first 2 weeks of December, you know, is when people will typically interview, but you won't necessarily start until January. Or what happens is you may go through an interview process, it stops and resumes in January. Do you understand? So October's a really, really good month. People are back from the summer holidays. People are understanding that they're, you know, we've got a new financial year in April. So if they haven't overspent, then they're looking to spend because they have that apportioned budget for recruitment. There is a science behind stuff like that. So, for example, I've got a friend who's been contracting for like 20 years, and he takes the whole summer off, and by August he's already putting feelers out, knowing that he's not going to get massive response because most people are on summer holidays. But come middle of September, his phone is going off, or his emails are popping off, because now they're looking to hire, and then he'll usually start work end of September, early October. But then he knows if he wants to go back in January, end of October, November, early November, you're interviewing, and sometimes they will say, are you happy to start in December, or do you want to start in January? Because they themselves know that December is a short month because of Christmas. And I would say also as well that who really wants to onboard somebody in December if they don't need to? Now, in my case, they're happy for me to come in. They're happy for me to start in December, and I'll only be there for 2 weeks because of Christmas, and then I'm back again in January. And it works really well for me because my daughter's in nursery twice a week. She's now going to go in full time a month earlier, so it gives me an opportunity to, you know, settle her and just see how I go for 2 weeks. And also bearing in mind, and what people don't know, what people don't sometimes appreciate, is it's really hard going back to work after you've had a child. Whether that's your first child, second child, third child, it's really hard, and I'll tell you why, on a couple of levels. Your hormones are still raging. Now, I'm telling you that I understand when I go through menopause, I'm going to have hot flushes and everything. And I know that because I'm hot constantly. Like, I'm always in a t-shirt. So it's winter here in London, or in the UK, because I don't live in London anymore, but I'm wearing a t-shirt and a thick jacket because I know that jacket is going to be like a furnace, but I can't wear a jumper underneath that jacket because I will die. It's just really that simple. Your hormones are raging. So I was told that really your hormones start settling after you've had a child. It starts settling 12 months after you've had a child. So can you imagine that? I mean, they start to level out, but to fully settle, we're talking about a year after you've given birth, right? And then you have a new routine that you have to develop as a mum. So if you already have a child and you've got another one, you're still developing new routines around your new child and you know your first, second, third, fourth child, or the children that you've had earlier. Now for me, I'm having to, like, I had my daughter at 38. Can you imagine that? Like, all I've had to ever do is just focus on myself. Like, I used to wake up in the morning, call one of my friends and be like, do you want to go to New York next week? That was the life I was living, honey. But now it's different, like, you know, and I've got all of that out of my system, but I'm having to develop new routines. Like, my friends would go on the school run and stuff like that. I'm part of the school run squad. I so am. Like, I'm the mum that wears her knickers back to front because I'm still half asleep. Yeah, I'm her. So now it's like nursery run, and nursery works a little bit differently because they don't do summer holidays or anything. They still go in as usual, which is fantastic. Then when they, you know, get to like reception, then it's more like the ordinary school year. So, you know, my daughter's going in. She's also developing her and building her immune system. So she's getting sick every 2 weeks because if you want to know the breeding ground of germs, it's nurseries. And she goes to a very, very good nursery, but, you know, everything goes in her mouth. So having to navigate that as well is quite stressful because I'm a contractor. If I don't work, I don't get paid. So if I get a phone call to come pick up my daughter because she's not feeling too well, you know, I don't know how I'm going to navigate that with work, and I'm going to share it with you here. I think for me, I never shared with anyone in my industry that I was pregnant or that I've had a child. I've never shared it. Simply because it makes me even more vulnerable than I feel being a black woman, being a successful black woman in my field. I feel like to now share I have a child, I just don't want the assumption that I'm less reliable, and that will be the assumption. I give you an example. I digress. New tab opened. I had a call with a recruiter one time, and my daughter was there, and I just picked it up because it wasn't my normal recruiter. It was like somebody I was just kind of sense checking whether I actually wanted to be on her books. And there was a role that, you know, she was discussing with me, and I said, well, it needs to be remote, at least it needs to be predominantly remote. I don't mind coming in to London 1 day a week. And then my daughter was like gargling, but she was like, she wasn't crying. She's really good when I'm on the phone. She's really quiet, but I'm not gonna like be like, shh, she's gargling. Like, let the girl be free, live, girl. And the lady that I was speaking to, the recruiter, she was like, oh, because you've got a child, so that's why you want to work from home. I was like, no, I'll work from home because I've done so since the pandemic. I have a home office here, 1 day a week in London. I don't mind as long as it makes sense as to the reason why. Not to see the whites of my eyes. My child goes to one of the best nurseries in my area, and her going into nursery and her childcare is not an issue. And that was from a woman. And upon speaking to some of my friends, I've been told that there are some women that they're worse than the men in terms of, you know, the stereotypes, the assumptions, and actually the way they treat you when they know you've had a child or you have a child. And we know black don't crack, and I have a real baby face. So the assumption is I'm in my 20s and all of this, when really I'm closer to 40. I got a newborn. Actually, she's not even a newborn. I've got a young baby. And I'm just trying to navigate and just make this money and be successful. That's all I'm trying to do. Add to that success. Anyway, I digress. Go back to the previous tab. So, so just developing new routines is stressful, because also your life is dictated based on the child. You could wake up, your baby could have a temperature, and you may have a really big meeting. And I feel very blessed, fortunate, and thankful to God that I have an amazing husband who is very career-minded, career-focused. He's got a good job as well. But we have to really work in partnership. So marriage is a business. It is a partnership as well. And, you know, trying to figure out, you know, parenthood has been really interesting. But, you know, for me and for most people, I assume, you know, the mother's the primary caregiver and the lead caregiver. That's a lot of pressure. We stay tired. Our natural state is tiredness. I don't think I've ever woken up and been like, that I've had enough sleep. I don't know what enough sleep means anymore. I live on coffee and Prime. Red Bull sometimes if I'm feeling fancy, you know. Going back to work, I won't be showing that I've got a child or anything unless I really have to. So, for example, if my child has chicken pox, I'm not, you know, I will work, me and Kay will work together, take time off to look after our child and nurse her back to health. But in that situation, you know, or if, for example, my daughter gets a cold or whatever where we have to go into hospital and it affects work, then I will say it to you know, one of the managers and make it very abundantly clear it's not to be shared with the rest of the team. It has to directly impact my ability to deliver. Then I think I'll have to make an informed decision about whether to share that information, because it will alter how I deliver, right? But as a contractor, I don't need to ask for permission. I don't need, you know, I'm not an employee. And I think my strategy going back to work now as a new mum is to deliver. I don't need to deliver over and beyond. I just need to deliver, okay? And I'm okay. I can do that. I think being an overachiever comes from the complexities of my background, being the only girl, Nigerian firstborn, the intricacies of my relationship with my mum, that type of, you know, mother-daughter relationship that is toxic. You are trying to overachieve because you're trying to prove something. You're trying to impress. You're trying to show that you are actually good at something. And I think I've done that, like, in my life. Like, I feel like I've overachieved. I've done certain things, and I just want to enjoy the fruits of that labour. It's unfortunate that we're living in a society that doesn't facilitate or encourage or support mothers just to really lean into their motherhood, because by rights, let's really be honest, we should be looking to go to work for like 2 years. And the system should support us as mothers. But that doesn't happen. Did you know, fun fact, in Belgium, their maternity is 3 months and then they're expected to go back to work. So, you know, and the maternity pay here is £172, and I think it's either 4p or 3p a week. That's nothing. My daughter's milk, her tin, she has Kenda milk. The goat milk is £21 per tin. So if we get 2 a week for the house, we'll have to get 2 a week for nursery, because she'll be in Monday to Friday. So go calculate that, and provide them with nappies and change of clothes for poo explosions, punamis. You know, going back to work, I always knew that I you know, would go back to work end of January, I always said. So to go quote unquote a month early isn't a bad thing, but the mum guilt choked me out. It, like, I had a conversation with my friend Bimpe. Big shout out to my friend Bimpe, who I just absolutely love and adore, because her support has been amazing. Big shout out to my husband. His support has been amazing, because this opportunity that came up, I was willing to walk away because it was a month earlier than what I had planned, because I felt so guilty about putting my daughter into nursery full time. And Kay said, Toya, you were always going to go back full time. It's just the difference of a few weeks. And I think when you put it into that perspective, I was like, okay. And I got very teary-eyed, because I felt like, you know, my daughter's not going to see me as much. You know, not like you're going from seeing me like from morning, noon and night to seeing me, you know, after nursery because of work, and then you're in bed by about 7 say I finish work at 5 and I could pick you up for 5:15. By the time you come home, maybe have something to eat or whatever, you've had your bath, you're in bed. So, you know, the interaction isn't as extensive as it would be on maternity. But there is a blessing in the fact that a lot of us work remotely, and a lot of us have held on to the power of employees and being a subject matter expert to dictate terms. So this particular role, this particular project is amazing, and I'm just so grateful to God for this project, because my CV reads like really well, and I've been strategic in how my CV reads. I haven't been pigeonholed into any one industry deliberately, and I've been able to climb up the career ladder really quickly. And these are the things I share in the freelance masterclass about being a contractor, because being a contractor, you don't have to be like, oh, only one this particular sector. You can be a contractor. I think I've also shared on that masterclass that my friend is a nurse, and she works for actually a private hospital. She earns, her day rate is wild, and she's also bank staff in an NHS trust. You know, my friend is a freelance. She's a social worker. She does she deals with fostering, so she does the reports, and she works for different local authorities. She does really well. I've got, like, when it comes to freelancing, being an interim and a contractor, I think what I have done very well in the masterclass is to let you know that it's not just for one particular area or one particular profession. There's a lot of professions where you can be a contractor. It's about understanding how to do it, how to set it up, how to, you know, have agencies on your Rolodex, because that's what I do. I have specific agencies that I work with, and then there's all the rest of them. Okay, I digress. Back to the old tab. See, I moved tabs. Me and my friend Bimpe, we talk in tabs. It's so funny, but she started it. But what I'm saying is, in terms of going back to work and stuff, that this particular contract, it was 2 days a week in London. Now, I truly believe that when I saw it, it was 1 day a week in London, because I wouldn't have applied if it was 2 days, whatever. So when this role was offered to me, it was offered on the basis of 2 days a week. And my thing was always, before the interview, when I was made aware that it's 2 days, I said, well, I'm going to let them fall in love with me. And when they fall in love with me, I will leverage that to negotiate 1 day a week. Really simple. And that's exactly what happened. I had my interview, say, on a Monday at like midday, for example, 3 people panel. Because of the type of project it is, I could completely understand why it's 3 people. But it was really relaxed. It wasn't any ag. They asked me certain questions, went through my experience, my transferable skills. It was just a really nice conversation. They asked me if I had any questions, and I was also interviewing them. And they told me that they felt that way. They were like, oh, this feels like a 2-way interview. And in my head, I was like, tick, because that's how it's supposed to feel. And then within a few hours, I got an email from one of the people on the panel saying, we want you to meet our program director for this particular project. Are you available tomorrow? I was available because Kay could have just taken my daughter, but I wanted a day where she was in nursery so I could fully focus. And that's what happened. So 2 days later, I had the second interview, and as soon as I saw the program director, I don't know what it was, I just felt at ease. And she was like, Toya, this is not an interview. I just really wanted to know who you were, because everyone on the panel yesterday, day before yesterday, my team really liked you, and I was just, you know, really wanted to know who this person was. And we both started laughing. I then received a call the next day from the agency saying, Toya, they want to offer it to you. And I was like, okay. And the rate is amazing. And I said, listen, I really like them. I can definitely see myself working with them. This, and the third. And I was like, but there are 2 things. I said, first of all, we need to increase the rate. And the recruiter's like, but the rate's really good. I said, I know, but it can be better. I said, secondly, it needs to be 1 day a week in London. I said, I don't live in London. They know this. Number 2, there needs to be a justifiable reason why I'm coming in twice a week. The 1 day a week makes sense because the whole team is in that 1 day. And that's great. And I think for my mental health, I think that's fine to go into London. I have no issue. But I'm a contractor. So I feel like if we're going to be in the office and you're not going to be paying for the transport, let it be for a legitimate reason. What's the second day for? So the agency came back and they were like, Toya, they agree. 1 day a week is fine. But if there are additional meetings, you know, would you be willing to go? I was like, yeah, of course. But then I'll go to my meeting, have my meeting, come back. She was like, all right, cool. So then, yeah. And then with my rate, they were like, yeah, they said that's fine. I was like, are they not going to negotiate? But I feel like when you find a good candidate, you know, so you will do what needs to be done. I feel like I definitely have always been the person that have said, especially in the negotiation masterclass, if somebody really wants you, they'll find a way. And sometimes it's about compromise, but to completely say, no, we're not negotiating, that means they don't want you enough, or they think that you are desperate enough to just accept the terms in which they're offering, even though, you know, negotiating shows that you're willing to compromise. If you can compromise at this early stage, you can compromise at work. Like, do you know what I mean? That there'll be, it's more two-way rather than one directional. You know, employment is two ways. Yeah, they have to create the environment for you to be productive, and then you have to be able to deliver against the role in which you've accepted. It's a two-way transactional relationship. So when you're sitting there arbitrary telling me no, you don't want to negotiate, that's your attitude throughout the employment. I don't want no stress. So yeah, that's how that went. And funny enough, I had another interview, and this interview was for, it's not so much a project, it's like a long-term thing, and then they want me to then hire their perm team once I've delivered all this stuff. And it was just very intense. It was a very, you know, there was no pleasantries of like who they are. Like, it was just very like, it was very like, like, what do you call it? Not surgical, but very, there's a word for it, anyway, it was just very rigid. And they were like, we've got 10 questions, we need to ask these questions, we're going to write stuff down. And it was 2 people, and the guy was lovely. He really liked me, and I think it's because he related to a lot of stuff on my CV, so we were able to talk about certain projects. And there was one project that I done, and he said that he'd heard of it. So I was like, yeah, I done it, And the interview was Aggie. So they wanted twice a week in London, and once a quarter they want you to go to Leeds. I hope you are laughing. Me go to Leeds? Listen, the only thing that I am leading is myself to the kitchen to go and eat. I am not going to Leeds. And they said they also have office in Birmingham. Yeah, I was just, in my head I was like, it's not me. But would they offer me the role? And I went back, I thought, let me just see if they will negotiate, because they're quite a big organisation, so I might come across them again. So I wanted to know what the art of the possible is. So I was like, no, 1 day a week in London, And they come back, and they actually agreed to the 1 day a week. And I said, and they said, but I have to be open to once a quarter going to Leeds. So I said to the recruiter, for this same agency, I've been put forward for something else. I need to wait for the outcome and then make a decision. So for me, I always say to you, you need to, it's like, interviewing's like dating. You can't be exclusive. You need to interview in many different organisations and have options, because that options also gives you the confidence to be able to interview well, because you know you have other opportunities and you believe in your source. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. When I went on maternity, I was really anxious about coming back to work. I was anxious because all I know is to survive. That's all I know. I don't know this whole take a break. When I was pregnant, I worked right up until 2 weeks before my due date. I had 2 contracts operating at the same time, and I was still consulting for certain organisations and making money on the side of doing that as well. So like, they'll send me contracts. Oh, can you red mark this? Can you give us a review? And I'll be charging them money as well as the 2 roles. So I've always operated from a state of survival, and it's really exhausting, because when does that stop? When do you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to be good? And those are questions that I have to ask myself. It's questions I ask myself in therapy. And I'll be resuming therapy as well next year. Because I feel like certain milestones that come, I need to be doing that. I'm going to be 40 next year, by the way. And I'm looking like a whole baby girl. Yeah, with my glistening lips. Using my Rihanna lip balm. Or what's it called? Yeah, I use it. But I'm still cute. But yeah, I just think I've always been in a state of survival. So when I went on maternity, I was really anxious about coming back. I was like, You know, is there going to be enough roles? What's the market going to be like? You know, there's a cost of living. People are, you know, holding on to the purse strings. They're not really spending money like that. And contractors are really expensive. Let's be real. Like, whether they're inside IR35 or outside IR35, they are expensive. So for me, I was like, you know, would I have to consider perm? And I'm going to sit here and confess to you all. My daughter was like 2 months old, and I had an interview, you know. Yeah, I did. Because I was really anxious about, if I know now what I should have known then, I would never have done that. I would have really just allowed myself to lean into my maternity leave. But I was worried because I was like, there's going to be a whole child that's also going to depend on me. She's going to a private nursery. Children are expensive. And whilst I've saved, I still need to maintain a lifestyle for my child. And also, me and my husband, we work really hard. But we bring our finances together. I need to be able to still pull my weight, like all those things. And especially when society is telling you that when you're on maternity, you come back and you have to take a pay cut, because, you know, all those things play on your mind, especially if you're a person that has operated from a state of survival. So for me, interviewing at 3 months is very wild when I think about it. But in the moment, I was like, maybe this is something I need to think of. And they wanted me to start in September. Again, you know, my anxiety. And anyway, I had an interview, and it was like 3 stages, and I didn't mind 3 stages because I was on maternity leave. You know what they do, like. And I managed to negotiate it was a perm roll, by the way. I managed to negotiate the salary, and it was amazing, the salary, I'm not gonna lie. It was over 100 grand a year. Yeah. The reason I'm breathing heavy is because as a perm, that's great, and then plus the packages and everything, it takes it over 100 grand anyway. But they refused to negotiate on putting remote working into the contract. So they said, oh, it is remote working, you'll agree it with your line manager, but we're not putting it into the contract. And I was like, that's a red flag. You're hiring me as a senior commercial contract manager, and you're telling me that something that I should agree verbally should be enough and not put in a contract. That's not going to work. They sent me the offer. They put it through their board members and everything. They just needed me to agree. The package was good, and the person that I would have been working for and my stakeholders were amazing. I asked to meet the stakeholders in the second stage. It was great. But I think what that did is it reinforced to me my negotiation skills are still very sharp. It proved to me that no matter the circumstance, I'm always ready for an interview, and I know how to deliver on an interview, even 3 months after giving birth. Number 3, it showed me that the market is very volatile, but, you know, I'm still very abreast of what's going on, and I'm still open to, you know, finding opportunities and knowing where those opportunities sit and furnishing those opportunities. And also what I proved to myself is I can do it. I've made the decision to stay a contractor. I'm gonna not be perm anytime soon, and I've managed to secure it to a point where, you know, contracting until I'm whatever age I want to do it is viable for me. But it's also about what works for you. You know, people say, oh, you can't plan on having kids, but I don't actually agree. I think you can. I think that you can make a conscious decision to have a better relationship with money. And I have a podcast about that, about developing your financial attitude and your, you know, being able to understand your relationship with money. And I have a podcast, the financial education, and there was 2 episodes that I did where I spoke about that. I spoke about, you know, my journey with money was never good. It wasn't. It was really bad. And now, like, my credit score is it 960 now? You know, there was a time I couldn't even afford sanitary towels. I'd just buy really good toilet roll and fold them up. Like, it really is, like, you know, started from the bottom. And the reason I share all of this and share the blueprint is to show that I don't have 2 heads. Like, I just really believe in my source. I'm a subject matter expert. I strive to be the best in class at what I do, and to be a student of life and a student of what I do for a living, and really open up the opportunity to learn and grow. And a lot of the opportunities that have come my way has come specifically because in my opinion, contracting. Because who's really waiting to be recognised by an organisation you've been working at for 5 years for them to promote you, and then them to then offer you, or you have to put their head and beg them to give you a pay rise? Or do you understand? Like, for me, I couldn't take it, and I'm so happy for the opportunity and the blessing to be a contractor, because it was one of my friends that opened up my eyes to being a contractor. She was a contractor first, and she was like, Toy, this is you. And then taking that risk to be, and I say a risk because at the time, I didn't even have savings. So if it went badly, like, do you understand? I hadn't planned for it. But there's a lot of things that when I'm advising people when they're going into contracting, there's a lot of things I advise them on the back of what I learned when I became a contractor. But back to the old tab. I think you can plan maternity. 100% think you can. I think you can plan it in terms of, if you have a good relationship with money, you've already started saving, then you just need to go into stacking mode. Because nappies, everything, you have to buy buggies. Buggies is the most expensive upfront investment that I found. My buggy was almost £2,000. So, then you've got to get a crib. If you've got more than 2 floors or more than 1 floor in your house, you have to have certain things on each floor. And then it starts to build up. It becomes really expensive. So for me, I think you can have develop a better relationship with money to build the foundation for things like starting a family and going on maternity leave. I will also say that I definitely feel as though you can be a lot more in charge of how maternity goes for you. So I think I shared this before, but I'll share it again. When I was 6 months pregnant, I was already looking for nurseries because I wasn't going to do this waiting list thing, because I needed to know that if I could find a good nursery, going back to work when I wanted to would more likely happen. Do you know what I mean? So at 6 months, I went round to look at different nurseries. I spoke to a lot of my friends about what to look for in a nursery. What makes a bad nursery? Like, how do I really know if this is the right nursery for my child? I got some great advice. If you want me to talk about that, then DM or email me. I'm happy to share that information. But I found a very, very good nursery, put my daughter's name on the waiting list. Put my daughter's name down, sorry. At the time, we didn't even have a name for her. I put her down, and we made a decision that she'd go in twice a week, because for us as a family, we knew that a child's going to go from being at home comforts, to going into a new environment. Twice a week would be really nice. It would give me an opportunity to have a few days to myself, but also to settle in my daughter. And before then, she'd go into full time, and that's exactly what happened. So my daughter started nursery when she was 5 months old. She was just shy of 6 months, and it meant that also as well, before she developed such an attachment to me that it would become difficult to take her to nursery and leave her there without her screaming. My mum shared with me that when she took me to nursery, I would scream and scream and scream and scream and get into such a state. And I always remembered that, because I think I had such a good bond with my mum as a baby, that separation anxiety was very real. So I was very conscious to do what I could to limit any trauma attached to leaving my daughter at nursery. I take my daughter to nursery and she's never cried once. She loves it there. She's one of the youngest in her rooms, and she's very well taken care of, very well cared for. There's cameras in the rooms, so we can log in and see at any one time what's going on. There's a phone in the room, so I can call in and ask, is she okay? So for example, she's got a bit of a cold, how's she faring and stuff. It's a very good, and it's one of those old school conventional nurseries. They have a curriculum, they have room leaders, they have development milestones for the babies and the kids, and there's heavy communication, there's a handover, it's just for me, it's really good. Now, could it be better? Yes, most nurseries could be better, but they have independent, they have their own Ofsteds and stuff, so, and safeguarding and stuff like that. So I've read around the nursery and how they've dealt with my daughter, and how she reacts tells me that she's really happy. And that makes it even easier to then return back to work. So, but these things were put in place when I was 6 months pregnant. I didn't know my child's personality. I didn't know how I would cope. I didn't know what the future held. But because I was able to plan and prepare, now that I'm going back to work a month early, it is a lot more peaceful, a lot more fluid. And I'm going back and I still have savings. And that was my thing. Like, I didn't want to use all of my savings and then I'm like, oh, I've got to go back. And then that anxiety as well. So I'm going back and I still have savings. So what I'm going to do is move that money into my daughter's savings account and then put some of that money into my lifetime savings and still have some money left. If someone was to ask me how much you should have for maternity, it depends on what your expenses are. But like for me, I had over £50,000 because what we was not going to do is be panicking. I still have a mortgage to contribute towards. We still have bills to contribute. I have a car. Petrol's expensive. The bills are rising, electricity, gas, so I needed to make sure that I had enough. And I also wanted a bit of a buffer so that even if I decided at the time that I didn't want to go back end of January, I could go back when I felt more comfortable. And then I had a couple of thousand just as an emergency fund. Remember, I worked up until 2 weeks before my due date. Remember also in August before, we had my trad wedding. So we've had a lot of expenses, but we've had to be really financially disciplined. And that came from not because we had these things going, but because we'd done the work years before. So my thing is, you can't work through financial issues when you have big financial liabilities like weddings and children and stuff. You have to be able to work on these things when you have the opportunity to straighten things out, because that is something that you're sowing to later on harvest when you decide to buy a house, for example, when you decide to have a child. Children are a financial liability. When you're applying for a mortgage, it asks you if you've got any dependents, because that is an expense that you have to pay. Nursery, childcare, whatever it is, and also your feeding, clothing, so you have to be able to have it. And this is something that I'm going to teach my daughter. Having a good relationship with money isn't just about making sure you get good value for your money. It's also about planning for the future of things, respecting money enough to know that it will only come to you if you do the work. Do you understand? If you do the work on straightening out any unhealthy habits that you have. I like nice things. I had to reward myself for every time I get a new contract. I reward myself. Every time I finish a contract, I reward myself. Anytime I get my contract renewed, I reward myself. Within reason. This is why I encourage people to negotiate salaries, negotiate day rates, because you need to be able to get the maximum amount of money that you can to be able to save and to be able to do. Like, a lot of people did not learn from the pandemic. I've shared this before. The pandemic, I earned the most money I've ever earned in my life. Yeah. Because I had done the financial literacy and the financial education. During the pandemic, I was holding down 2 contracts as well. 2 contracts, and I was consulting on top of that. I was working on big projects, by the way. I didn't have time for bullshit. Like, I didn't have time. And on top of that, during the pandemic, me and Kay were buying another place. So a lot of financial liabilities, but if we did not do the work, would we have seen certain financial opportunities during the pandemic? No. All I wanted to do was stack and save. And then that's when I saw the beauty of working from home. Because what organisations don't understand and they can't accept is, just because I've got more than one contract doesn't mean that you're less down the priority, but they can't help it, especially when it comes to black people earning money and maximising our opportunity. It's almost like they see it as an issue because they never thought of how to maximise their earning potential. I don't know. But we don't tap into privilege because we don't have any as black people. So what do? We maximise our opportunities. We negotiate. We create better terms for ourselves. We understand, by the grace of God, the value that we bring. We're subject matter experts. We're educated to the nines. We understand that we have to be best in class at what we do. But it's also about how you use that to maximise your financial ability to make as much money as possible. What does success mean to you? I've asked this on several episodes. What does it mean? Does it mean that you earn a certain amount? Does it mean that you are on top of your game in terms of promotions and stuff like that? Like, what does success, how does it look like to you? Does success look like, I don't know, a 5-bedroom house, a car, a white picket fence? You know, you don't have to get people to agree to what success looks like for you. It's a personal thing. It's about what makes you, what fulfills you. What keeps you motivated? What is the thing that you want to achieve most that will fulfill you as a person? And how can you attain that success? So for me, the Toy Talks podcast is that it is about how to attain success, how to grow, how to work through certain traumas to be able to maximize your ability to be present, how to navigate successfully, to be present, to be able to get what you deserve. Yeah, like I'm done with being subservient years ago. I'm done with making, I remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I remember in my 20s when I was offered a job and I got a job, my first day I'd go to the manager and say, thank you for hiring me, thank you for offering me the job, I'm so grateful. I used to say that. That is wild. Thank you for hiring. You had a vacancy that you needed to be filled, and clearly I had the skill set and I had what you thought was what I needed to do the job. I don't need to just personally go, I used to have this substance, so grateful. Bullshit. I don't say thank you. You know what I do? I just deliver. I'm going to make you want me again and again and again. I'm going to make you renew that contract several times, and then I'm going to be like, I don't want to. Okay, what can we do to make you renew? Okay, I need more money. I need better terms. Somebody sent me something on TikTok where some girl, woman, lady, girl, I don't know, a female, where she said, if you want to hold on to your job, you need to accept every invitation to like social events at work. If you want to hold on to your job, if you want to be successful, you need to go to every event, every office drinks, every this. That's bullshit. I've always told you that. So what happens the one time when you can't and you say no? Listen, don't make a rod after your own back, People talk about social currency. Use your brain. That's what I'm going to say. Like, boundaries cannot be created if you go to everything and you're a yes man all the time. That's not how to hold on to a job. How to hold on to a job is to be strategic, is to really take the time to look at certain things, to set objectives, know what you want to do, to understand the different players in an organisation. Who is the troublemaker? Who's the decision maker? Who will directly influence your ability to get to the next level? How are you going to manipulate certain situations to get what you want? And then looking further afield than where you work, about the competition, like how am I going to navigate? I'm sorry, there's no such thing as job security, and staying in a job for 10 years does not mean anything other than, okay, you're loyal to the job, but are they loyal to you? You don't owe anyone anything. What did you learn from the pandemic, and how are you using those things to your advantage? I'm really sorry. Let me be an example to you. The last time I went to a Christmas party was like 2015. The last time I went to like a drinks or something, or I would go to certain things periodically, was like 2018. Periodically. So for example, I was working for a tech organisation and I made a commitment that once a month I'd go to drinks. And what I would do is I'll go, socialise, and then leave. And I would not always accept an invitation. So the one time I did, they'd make it into a big deal. I created boundaries because I didn't want to get home at 10 o'clock to be back in the office again for 7:30. Do you understand? I didn't, and also as well, I didn't allow an organisation to feel that my success and my progress within an organisation depends on how many drinks I attend. It's a very cheap way to do things. Cheap. I don't need to go to lunch with you. I remember one time I was asked to go to lunch. I was like, I'm fasting. They just looked at me. They didn't know what to do. I'm fasting. I'm fasting from toxicity. I'm fasting from bullshit. I want to eat in peace. I would just say it like that. And I'm not lying. I am fasting from bullshit. I'm fasting from toxicity. And sometimes you just need a break. It's not everything you can say yes to. In ordinary life, do you say yes to everything? So why is it any different in the workplace? Like, why are you transferring all that power to an organisation? Why are you doing that? Is it because you don't believe in yourself enough, in your strategy enough, in your career? Like, what is that? Let me be really clear to you. If I didn't strategically navigate my career the way I did and the way I've shared and given you all the blueprint through the masterclasses and the podcast, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be a contractor. Yeah, I wouldn't be senior in the way I've been able to navigate. and I wouldn't be earning more money now than I've ever earned in my entire career. I wouldn't be in that position. So surely I'm doing something right. Surely I am. So like this new place I'm going to now, I'm sure they're going to be doing drinks and stuff. No. I'm not going to anything. And I can't. Between you and I, I have a daughter, I've got a family. I don't have time. But could I go to a lunch once a month? Maybe. But if they stay good, if they start doing all this toxic shit, no, I'm not. I need to, I've got a deadline. I don't have time. And it's about being so good at your job, being a subject matter expert, delivering, but setting boundaries. So whoever said that girl that said it, I was just looking at her like, but how much do you earn? Yeah. And what's your title? How like, do you understand? That is a low level response. It's low level. It's low vibration. You have to keep your job. You need to accept every meeting, every social event. It's a low vibrational way to approach work and your career. It's low vibrations. Where in your contract does it say you have to go to every social event? It doesn't. But what you do need is to be strategic. And this is why I've created a platform. There's nothing I've shared here that you can't recreate or you can't adapt to where you are. And I don't talk a lot. I speak less. I observe a lot. And then I move. The thing is, I'm Carmen Sandiego. I'm all over the place, honey. I'm talking to this person about this opportunity in this role. You're going to think that this is the only role I'm ever interested in. These times, I've probably got another contract. I'm consulting over there. I'm speaking to this person here. I'm furnishing this relationship with this recruiter over here. Strategic. And I'm still delivering. It's really simple. It's transactional. Yeah, the only commitment I ever have made in my life is to my husband, to be married. I'm not making that commitment to a role, an organisation. And this is why I feel like for me, being a contractor works. I'm a free spirit as well. But if you're going to be a perm, you have to adopt these blueprints. That's the only way you're going to have peace and tranquility. Or at least operate strategically in a healthy environment. That's my view. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Hopefully this is, a rejuvenating episode for you all at the start of the year. I'm really happy that I've been able to record this. Wish me luck for my first day because I'm a bit nervous. Yeah, because listen, I've only had COVID once. Okay, I'm just getting public transport. What is this? But I've also set the tone. So I'm getting in at 10 after my last meeting. 10 a.m. After my last meeting, I'm going home. Put my laptop on. 5 p.m. going to pick up my daughter. My daughter will never be the first person in nursery and will never be the last person to be collected. That's a commitment I have made. Between me and my husband, that's what we've made. So everything else has to work around my life. Now, that wouldn't be possible if I wasn't strategic, right? Okay. If I could share like what I'm really nervous about, I think it's overstimulation. So I think as a mum, people don't talk about being overstimulated. Your baby's crying, bright lights, things like that. Always being in a state of worry. Especially being a new mum, it can be quite overstimulating. But I've not been in an office in almost 3 years. So being overstimulated with noise and smells and, do they have a tea and biscuit brigade? Because I'm not interested. I'm bringing my own coffee, everything. My own jug for my drink. Not jug, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm very self-sufficient. Go there, get done, leave. I'm going to be a contractor in every essence of the word. If I'm going to be on a Wednesday, I'm not going to just be there from 9 to 5 so you can see me. No. After my last meeting, I'm going to go home. I'm going to say, I'll switch on my laptop when I get home. That's my attitude. Why am I staying till 5? I can't anyway. I'm not trying to do rush hour with you lot. I say you lot. But who's really trying to do rush hour? That's not normal. Rush hour is not normal in London. Sorry. So I need to leave at 4 so I can get back home for 5. I don't live in London anymore as well. That's my excuse. And all these train companies always striking. Is it really going to be 1 day a week? We'll see. Anyway, I hope this has helped you. For those of you who want to learn more, the associated masterclass to this podcast episode is a maternity masterclass available on the toytalks.com website. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. Please follow me on my social media handles. TikTok, Toya Washington, all one word. Follow me on my personal Instagram page, which is Toya_Washington. There is a Toya Talks podcast Instagram page, which is Toya_Talks. I am also on Snapchat, which is the original birthplace of the Toya Talks brand, podcast, you name it. And the handle there is Toya Washington. And I am also available to answer any of your work-related or life-related dilemmas anonymously. Your name will not be shared. And if I have to change certain things so that you will not be exposing yourself to be identified, I will happily do that. So in the subject box, just tell me it's a dilemma and maybe a short introduction, sentence, subject line, subject header of your dilemma, and email hello@toyatalks.com. And of course, we have the masterclasses. So we have the interview masterclass, the CV masterclass. We have passing your probation, negotiation, redundancy, the mother-daughter masterclass. We have the freelance and interim contractor masterclass, and so much more. Go ahead and have a look at those on the toyatalks.com website. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Hopefully we can go into 2024 achieving all our goals, manifesting all the things on our vision board. Also keep an ear out, because I will be discussing even more so Toya Talks Live 2024. We had our first Toya Talks Live in 2018. It was amazing. It was sold out within a week. It was sold out. I was meant to do one, I believe, in 2020, but the pandemic struck and I had to refund everyone their money and say, you know what, we'll try and do this again another time. And here we are now in 2024. The time is now. We're ready. So at some point this year, I will be discussing the Toya Talks Live, what that would look like, the dates, where it will be. It will definitely be held in London. Once I have secured the venue, I will let you know. Yeah, and it'll be limited tickets. Once they're gone, they're gone. There may also be maybe apparel or some stationery, maybe, that will be exclusively sold during the event, maybe. So you've heard it exclusively here first, the Toya Talks Live 2024, delivered by me, Toya Washington, yours truly. I can't wait! Take care, make sure you share, discuss this episode in your group chats, and email me, send me a DM. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.